Hey, what's up, Lightbolt Joe here. Today we are going to discuss Friday the 13th, Part 3. This came out, let me get to my notes, August 13th, 1982, directed by Steve Miner. So Steve Miner did the second, Steve Miner did the third, direction-wise. This is a very important movie in the Friday the 13th franchise because Freddy gets his mask, and he's running around with a machete. So it's interesting because he's notoriously known for wearing his mask in all, 12 movies that there are. And he didn't get his mask until the third film. He wasn't introduced until the second film. So it's pretty interesting when you think about it, canonically, story-wise, because he's not the main character in the first movie. He's introduced in the second. And he doesn't get his iconic hockey mask covering his deformed face until the third movie out of 12 movies. So it's pretty cool seeing the progression of a character. I want to compare him to Elmo from Sesame Street. And I know some of you just went, excuse me, what? Now, Elmo was introduced as a Muppet within the Sesame Street gang way before he got his own, Elmo show, and he became the Tickle Me Elmo franchise of 1995. And, he was around in the 80s, but he wasn't, a big thing. He was there. He was doing his skits and stuff, but, he wasn't a big thing till the 90s. So that's why I like to, in a very interesting way of putting it, compare Jason Voorhees, the masked serial killer, to Elmo the Muppet from Sesame Street. Na-na-na-na, Elmo's World. Right? Okay. Now, the beginning of this movie starts at the ending of the last movie. So Ginny she puts the sweater on. She pretends she's Pamela Voorhees. She's, telling Jason that, be a good boy, kneel, and, it's, make your mommy proud kind of a thing. She winds up stabbing Jason with a machete, and then she thinks that he comes through the window and attacks her. And that's the last we see of her. But in this, we see her being put on a stretcher, going off to a hospital. We see this via a news crew. This movie starts the day after the events of Friday the 13th Part 2. So we start out at a grocery store. Husband and wife are fighting, and the woman is, they have an apartment in the back, and she's knitting. She's knitting an orange scarf, and they have a bunny, and she's watching the news, and the news reporter says police officers arrived at dawn to discover 8 bodies. So we're getting a timeline. Now I know the timeline branches, and it doesn't make any sense moving further, but right now 1, 2, and 3 canonically make sense. The first one takes place June 13th, 1980. We know this date because it is referenced and spoken that the day is Friday the 13th. It's Jason's birthday, Friday the 13th. We know that because Pamela Voorhees tells Alice that. And we know that it's the present day when the movie comes out in 1980 because in the beginning of the movie it says present day. So the opening of the first film takes place in 1958. We know that that's when Mrs. Voorhees killed those 2 camp counselors a year after her son was pronounced dead from drowning, but his body was never found. So then in this movie, we know that Jason is alive and well in his superhuman strength and abilities. He's not true zombie Jason at this point. He's just doesn't get affected when he's murdered, when he gets stabbed, or when he has the hatchet through his head, or, things, right? So the premise of this is a group of college kids are paired up, male and female respectively, and they go to this girl Chris's dad's cabin on the lake, on Crystal Lake, Camp Crystal Lake. It's not a camp, on Lake Crystal Lake. And, or is it just on Lake Crystal? I have to think about that. If the cabin is on Crystal Lake, but it would be called Lake Crystal. Wow. Okay, my brain is going crazy right now. So it's also kind of like farmlandish because there's a barn involved through many scenes in this film. There's a motorcycle gang involved trying to get retaliation after a convenience store scuffle and all these different things. And then, Jason is picking off people one by one. And Shelley, you never would have thought he would be the most important character in this franchise up until 5, when we get introduced to Corey Feldman's character of Tommy, and I love Corey Feldman in Part 5. Whew, can't wait to watch that and talk about it. I love that film. That might be my favorite, Friday the 13th. I'm getting ahead of myself. So Shelley's a prankster. He pretends that he gets killed, but he's not killed, and like he's trying to create some fear and whatever. So then eventually Jason does actually slice his throat, and then this girl that he likes does not believe him, and she's like, "Shelley, cut it out," and she just goes on and does her thing as he's bleeding out of his neck, and he's like, it's hysterical. So Shelley tries to prank this girl with a spear gun and a hockey mask that he wears, and he grabs her leg in the lake and like scares her, and then once he's disavowed by that girl, she's like, "Get away from me," he goes back to the barn, and Jason kills him, takes his mask, takes his spear gun, and this is the hockey mask that we see moving on and on and on. At the end of this film, Chris, the girl whose house it is, in the middle of it, it's revealed that she actually escaped Jason a little while ago when she ran away from home, and she met him in the woods and he tried to kill her. But she survives this film just as Al survived the first, and then just as Ginny survived the second. But we know that Ginny is still alive because she gets taken out in an ambulance, and we know that Chris is still alive because she's taken by police to go to a hospital at the end of this film. We'll talk about what happens moving forward. So it's important to note that Jason in future films is seen with the hockey mask and a axe smack right on the brow of his mask and head, because Chris literally takes an axe and smashes him in the face with it, and then he's dead as the last camera pans. But then the camera pans in, fades to the lake, and we get a beautiful, serene picture of the lake with a little bubble that pops up. What's awesome about the Friday the 13th films is that we get gore, we get sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but we get serene, artsy shots of nature. Because you got birds and bugs and animals galore singing and dancing away in the background, making noise. So it's like a part of it. It's a weird sense of misery loves company. Best way to explain it. The bad with the good mixed together gives us Friday the 13th. It's a really cool way of putting it. I'm really glad I'm binging this again because they're more artistic than I thought they were. I remember them being just campy, stupid films you watch with your friends and you get scared at 2 a.m. But like, they're well done. Very well done. Now that I'm old, I have a much more sophisticated palate. No, I have a higher respect and appreciation for the craft that went into these films. And this was made in 1982. It takes place in 85, but it was still made in 82. So the practical effects, like, when a snake jumps out, you see the string, and like when the spear gun goes right into the camera, you see the string. But like, you take what you can get for the time. I will say that. This was also made in 3D. That's another important thing to know, because like certain things, like the yo-yo going up and down, like you could tell it's for 3D when the spear gun goes, when the snake goes, all those little things. Jason and his machete and the axe. It was a good film. I enjoyed it. I don't dislike 1, 2, or 3. I think they're really good. 5 is still my favorite. I'm jumping the gun. 5 is still my favorite. And then I don't remember most of them afterwards. There's a Going to Manhattan episode. There's a Jason's in space and he gets genetically modified. There's also he goes to hell at some point, I think. We got things to watch, we got things to pay attention to, and we got things to discuss. Moving forward, Mucho mahalo.